now. So tell me, how was the homework? आइए. Do you all get a chance to see the video?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's see. Daniel Saab, tell me, what was your take after watching the video?
It was kind of depressing, actually.
It was kind of depressing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Given the situation that was going on in Mostar and how the people were suffering, and that there were people who were trying to help. There were doctors, architects who actually joined the army and tried to protect their people from the Croatian and Serbian soldiers. Yeah.
What else? Zishan, what was your take on it?
So it was obviously kind of really sad to see that how Muslims were treated in that area. Around 60,000 Muslims were actually suffering at that time in 1992. So it was really sad to watch that how Muslims have been treated all around the world. This was only one documentary which we were actually seeing, but there are other areas, other part of the world like Kashmir, where Muslims are also suffering these kind of situations every day to day. So what I felt was that I am not being able to help other Muslims, and like we in Pakistan here live in like a peaceful state, and I was like thanking God that He actually gave me such life. That's pretty much.
So you had a sense of gratitude.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so SM Hamza Saab, what was going on in your mind while you were watching those videos?
It was depressing. It was making me sad, and also I realized that it was only documentary of one city, of one country, and the war is going on in so many countries and so many cities. People, are treated worse than animals. People getting killed, and obviously I was thanking God that I was born in Pakistan, and I'm living a life of such luxuries. I don't know what war feels like or anything like that. So I was also thankful to God, and really that actually we as Muslims, myself and also all Muslims, are unable to help other people, humans in general. Not as Muslims, but we are not humans. As humans, we are not helping each other.
Telling good, yeah, I'm happy. I'm very happy that you're going through those ideas. Okay, Mr. Hassan, what were your feelings?
I was sad to see what was happening in Mostar. But the people of Mostar, the courage they were showing, and the commitment which they were fighting for their rights, that was commendable. On the part of World and other community, Muslim community, United Nations, they were playing no role for saving those people, and they were dying like cattle. So it was very sad to see that. Especially the child which died due to the lack of medication and medical help, that was depressing. Those people themselves were using the medical help in wrong way. So that was also bad that some people died due to that. So it was depressing to see what was happening in Mostar.
So let's talk to Ms. Maham. So what was going on in your mind?
Actually, whenever we talk about war, whenever we hear about it, we just think it from a macro perspective that so many people died. But to actually see from such a micro perspective that what every they used to lead normal lives like we did. Some were aspiring lawyers, some were architects, some had families, like a normal everyday life that we live. But in a matter of days, that was taken away from them, and they were forced to live in the situation, which they themselves couldn't comprehend that why, and at that point, and this is what life was for them now. So that was actually very moving.
So one of the things that I wanted to point out is the fact that wherever we are, or whatever situation we may be in, we can always actually make a difference. It's not about how much you can do that really counts. It is whatever you can do. So sharing that information, maybe raising funds, and maybe getting inspired by that situation and making a difference in somebody's life, right where we live. So if you were to go to, say, some of the areas in Karachi, you'll find abject poverty, you'll find a lot of misery. So who is stopping us from making a difference in those people's lives? You see what I'm trying to say? So if we cannot make a difference in, say, 100 people's lives, why can't we make a difference in just one person's life? So the idea is that we can all make a difference, yeah? And that is where it comes. See, this idea of being proactive and being having that paradigm that we can make a difference actually connects to the idea of visions. Because a person who does not have a clear vision, that person is leading a life which is basically reactive. I have this problem, I have that problem, Pakistan has this challenge, that challenge, So I'll be complaining all the time. So I'll have a victim mentality. Whereas visions basically mean the picture of the future that you want to see, which will be more brighter and better picture of the future, which means you need to be proactive, take charge, take a lead, make an effort. So if you remember yesterday when we spoke about the person who said that all of my life I've been spending according to a prediction, not according to a vision. You see? So whenever we develop powerful vision for ourselves, we talk about proactiveness. We talk about being able to make a difference, being able to, change things. You see what I'm saying? Okay, good. So did you get a chance to read the first article also?
Yes, sir.
So that was clear?
Yes.
Okay. So what was the main takeaway of that article? So let's see what you were able to get. Surur Saab.
So the main crux of the first essay was to survive in any situation and have faith in God. Even if you aren't able to accomplish your goal, but you need to strive again and again, and work as a team rather working as an individual. The character girl Ada reflects how she was, even though they weren't able to have a conversation, but she was trying to express her feeling to the person. The person was able to have knowledge about her and was understanding what he could do. This was the main idea. I think that was the main crux of the movie.
Okay, good. Haji Priya Sahib, what was the main crux of that? What was the takeaway message of that article?
So according to me, what I felt was really important and what I took away from it was that every time things are not under our control. Okay, we cannot always have the person if it was not in our control, but we should not say that okay, if and try to do it again. We should not give up. We should try to take away a lesson from it. Okay, this time it could not happen, we could not help people out, but next time perhaps maybe we could do something and play our part.
That was the key lesson. The key lesson is that we will not give up, and that if I'm not able to make a difference today, I'll be able to make a difference in the future. So as you will read that book, so I came across a girl of similar age in Tajikistan who was about to die. And alhamdulillah, we did a project, we established a hospital, we had these kids who had TB and they were dying, and we were able to move these children to the new hospital, and alhamdulillah, that girl survived. So at one point, if we were not able to make a difference, there was a time when we were able to make a difference, right? So that was the key takeaway. Okay, sharing. So tell me, how was that experience? Who did you share what you learned yesterday with? What was his response? And what was your key learning out of that response? So let's go to Mr. Umar. What's up? Who did you share with? What did you share? What was the response of the person? And what was the learning out of that response?
I tried to share with my brother. And while we were coming here, so he was like literally not interested at all in it.
Okay, I missed it. Can you repeat that again?
I tried to share it with my driver.
A driver, okay.
Yeah, but he was not at all interested, so I just read
He was not interested at all?
Yeah.
So what did you try to share with him?
Like I was trying to share it what was written in there, and then he said, "Sir, आपकी university आ गई."
Arey yaar, mashallah. So yeah, it means you started pretty late, huh? So it must have been like 5 years before the university came.
Yeah, while I was here, so it's a short distance.
Too short a distance, yeah. Okay. Salman sir?
Yeah, I sat with my friends in the evening while having tea, and I tried to talk to one of my friends, and I sort of described what happened in the class yesterday, and a sort of brief introduction about you, what you've been doing in the past, and the situation in Mostar, Bosnia, and a bit about what is in the essay. So this is what I discussed with him, and he was like, yes, this is just Bosnia. We've seen examples in Chechnya. Chechnya has been through almost the same. We are actually witnessing the same in Syria.
He said that, huh?
That's what he said. We've also witnessed that in Lebanon, in Egypt, Iraq, Afghanistan. That's what's been happening throughout the Muslim world.
Kashmir.
And Kashmir, yes. So this is, and I mentioned that 200,000 people actually died as a result of whatever happened in Bosnia. So he was like, yes, this is the scale of the Muslim oppression throughout the world. And then I also mentioned about this vision and prediction thing that we talked about yesterday. And he was like, yes, everybody is after, what's going to happen in the coming years and planning out things with respect to that, and not going after what they actually want to do because of probably survival issues, because in Pakistan there's this huge issue of survival. We ought to go after professions that are sort of secure, that are good for us, but that probably might not be best for us.
He said that.
Yeah.
Your friend must be a very intellectual person, yeah?
So,
you should invite him here as a guest maybe one day.
So like, I mean,
So this friend of yours doesn't happen to be your father, is he?
No, he's not. He's a very close friend of mine. He's an MBA too. He has his own business, and he goes through ups and downs every day. So he meets all sorts of people every day. People from Jodi Avadar to people from perhaps ICI or McKinsey. So that's the sort of different people that he meets every day. So he knows what's going around the world. So yeah, that's sort of response that I got from him.
Okay. Very interesting, mashallah. So what was your learning out of that transaction
That
with your friend?
that people actually know what's happening, the oppressions that Muslims are going through, but they're not able to do what they actually want to do as a result in response to that. People actually do want to help these oppressed people. They want to make a difference, but they are not able to because of lack of platforms perhaps, or because they're so occupied in earning their livelihoods and going about their day-to-day business that they don't actually get time to think about that much. It's just these small conversations when they actually give some consideration to these issues, or when they watch the news and all. But when it comes to making a difference or contributing to help those people, they actually cannot do it because of they're pretty occupied in keeping their tummy full and feeding the family and all. So that's the sort of issues Pakistanis are under right now. They're in a lot of stress in earning their livelihoods, and they don't tend to think beyond that. So that's one of the major issues that I felt that
Do you think it's really the issue of earning the livelihood, or is it the pressure of keeping up with the societal norms?
Both.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe if you were to live in a simple way,
Yeah.
you won't have to work that hard, huh?
Or
It doesn't take too much to survive, does it?
it doesn't.
Hmm.
So that's the pressure from society that we're under right now.
Hmm.
Keeping up with the status and the financial status and the norms.
Interesting. अच्छा जनाब, हाँ भाई, Mr. Farooq, what was going on in your minds? Who did you share with? What did you share? What was the response? What was your learning out of the response?
Sir, I shared my flatmate, Mr. Rizwan. So we were having a dinner. So I told him about that, what is personal accident about. Told him about you, and what was your experience about your past. That how you left NED University and moved abroad in USA, and then
Because of my father, huh?
Yep. And
Yeah.
then other story how you moved for humanitarian work in different countries, and then he has quite interest in politics. He was quite aware of what's happening in the world. So when I discussed him about the siege of Mostar documentary, well, in fact, he hadn't seen the video, but he knew what was happening in Bosnia at that time. So we discussed, even though he was in the same day where Suleman was saying that we are aware of the fact that what is happening, but there was ethnic cleansing at that time happening in Bosnia. Even that, it is still happening in Kashmir right now. So even though we wanted to do something, I think we don't have someone to lead us. How we can help as a Muslim Ummah. So what we see, OIC is one of the biggest organizations in the world. So OIC hasn't done anything for the Muslim, for even what happened in Bosnia. It was the UN at last who intervened and put an end to what was happening in that area. So I think it is the responsibility all of the Muslim Ummah, which is I think we are not doing what we were ought to do. So so it is the weakness of the whole Muslim Ummah.
Okay, interesting. So it seems that there are a lot of intellectual people around the city. Huh? If you look at a statistical analysis, so at least we find 2-3 people who are pretty aware, pretty, motivated, concerned. Yeah. Good. Okay. So now let's go to the other homework. So what is a concentration camp? Okay. So let's have Hamza tell us. Hamza, what's a concentration camp like?
So basically concentration camp, as of course evident by the name, concentration. So it is a war camp or a place or some kind of enclosure where war prisoners and people of a certain maybe descent or whatever for the reason of the war, they are gathered there and they are kept there. So it's like if like for the Nazi concentration camps, they kept Jews there and everything, and the conditions for the concentration camps are basically like makeshift prisons kind of places. The prisoners there or the people who are captured and kept there, they are not properly looked after, even as in a prison might have been. So basically that is the concept, that people are gathered in war and kept there so that they can be maybe manipulated for some gain of the war or whatever reasons.
Okay. Yeah. You know, the comparison between a concentration camp and a prison is like a rundown motel and a 5-star hotel. For a concentration camp, prison is a 5-star hotel. That's the level of, difference. Okay, let's see. So Surur, what's a concentration camp? What was your research telling you?
So basically a camp where the prisoners and minority members are kept. It's really small, and there are food and different things provided to them. That's it.
What is provided to them?
The food, different things are provided to the members where the camp is kept.
I did not get that. What do you mean food?
So basically, the definition that I read was is a camp that consists of minority members and political people that were caught while in fights, and they are kept in a camp where they are given shelter, food, and different things.
Okay. Where they are actually deprived of food. Deprived of food and essential things. But they are not fed properly, they are not given, comforts. But they are actually harassed and tortured. It's actually the opposite. Okay. Okay, so what's transactional analysis? What is transactional psychology? Who will help me with that? What's the transactional psychology?
I can understand beyond what you learned yesterday.
Okay.
I didn't understand it.
Okay, no problem, no issue. Suleman, what's transactional psychology?
It's like a study of ego states. Like for instance, if there are two people, and like suppose I'm interacting with you, so there is a transaction stimuli that I'm generating. In response to that, in response to what I'm saying, there's a transaction response which you will generate. So during this whole interactions, transaction thingy, our ego states are basically interacting. Now there are three sorts of ego states. One is parent, child, and adult. This whole analysis thing, it was it was researched by Dr. Berne, and he said that during the first, what is a parent actually? Like during the first 5 years of a child, he's exposed to external factors. Like his parents, his or her parents would tell him not to do this, not to do that. Or that is something which will be generated inside the child mind. These are all external factors which actually make him a parent, sort of parent, thinking process you can call it. Now that then there is an adult thing. In case of adult, it's like a child has a control. He makes a decision. Like for instance, like if he wants to go for an ice cream, like he wants to go for a t-shirt, something like that. Now that is an adult ego state. Then comes the
parent.
Child. Sorry, child. In that case, it's an internal stimuli. It is related to the emotional factor. Emotional thinking, when a child cries, when a child he feels kind of frightened, afraid of seeing a horror movie, and all these stuff.
Okay, good. You have given the right answer, but it is so, mashallah, complex that poor Maham is further confused. Am I saying? Okay, no problem. Okay. There's a book that I would like to very strongly recommend. And I don't know if personal excellence, yeah. I'll talk to Dr. Zishan and we make it a reading material of this class. It's called Games People Play. Yeah? Dr. Evic Berne. Games People Play. Okay, let me introduce you to the thesis of this book. It's a very small book. It's a very phenomenal book. So when I was a teenager, my father told me, he said, you should read this book. But like many teenagers, I never took him seriously. And it took me another maybe 25 years before I read that book. And I realized that if I had read that book when I was a teenager, I would have made much fewer mistakes in my life. So, because the title of this course is Personal Excellence, so what this book speaks about is going to help us move in that direction. The basic thesis of this book is, and this book actually became the foundation for transactional psychology. This book became that, foundation. What this book basically says is that we, human beings, are able to deceive ourselves. So in popular psychology, we call it denial. But in transactional psychology, we call it a game. That we are able to play a game with ourselves. So what we basically will do is, we will have an inner belief, which may be erroneous and which may not be correct. And we will actually subconsciously work to create a situation which actually confirms and validates that belief. And we do not even know that we are doing it. To the detriment of our interest. You understand? So it's called a game. So what he has done is a phenomenal work that he has gone through and he has identified certain games. He has named those games. And in instances, he has said, how do you actually block those games? For example, there is a game, he says, the game is yes, but. So suppose, for example, we have Suleman Sahab, and he hires me. So he has a company and I'm hired to work for him. So after a few days, Suleman happens to show up in a Timelenders time management workshop. And you realize, we need to be very punctual and everything. So he sends me to the workshop also. And now he expects me to be on time. And I'm still late. So one fine day, Suleman will come and say to me that, Mr. say, Abdullah, for example. Say, Abdullah, you are late and you shouldn't be late. And I will say, yes, that's true. But, I get up late. So he'll say, well, if you get up late, then get up early. And I will say, but yes, but I sleep late. And he will say, well, if you sleep late, then sleep early. And I'll say, well, I would, yes, I would like to sleep early, but, when I go home, I have a lot of cares and, I have to take care of the kids, then I go home and, he'll say, well, why don't you keep a maid? I'm giving you a good salary. And I'll say, but yes, but, my wife doesn't get along with my maid. Something like that. My home is a graveyard for the maids. And he said, well, for God's sake, why don't you get maids and pay them well and, give them, motivation and, give them a job description and stuff like that. Things like that. He'll say, yes. See, there's a yes but going on. So a point will come that that he'll get frustrated and he'll say, get lost, man. I don't know why you can't understand. So when I'm going to walk out of that room, what is the position that I was validating? The position was, I cannot be helped. And I've validated that position through this game, and I've even drawn the other person into the game. You understand what I'm saying? And all of us are playing certain games with ourselves. So he said, how do you block it? You know? He said the way to block it is that Suleman should say to Abdullah that, you know, Abdullah, I understand that you get up late and you have this problem. So why don't you go and think about a solution and come back to me, and I'll try to help you in that solution. But I will not accept you being late. Allah. That's the way to block it. Otherwise you get stuck. So this morning, some of my employees were arguing. We don't want to put on. How many of you ride a motorbike to class? Nobody rides a motorbike to class? Sure. You're all very rich, huh? Okay. They're arguing with me that, okay, we'll put on the helmet, but we're not going to put on knee guards, and we don't want to put on the elbow guards and the knee guards. I said, that's our policy. We have to put them on. But Suleman Sahib, internationally, even they don't, force you to put on a knee guard and an elbow guard. So I said, well, if internationally, if there's no law, does that mean that it stops me from making a law? So when I started to argue, so I started noticing the yes but game started. My clothes will get creased and this, and so I put an end to that game. I said, well, listen, this is the rule here. So if this makes you very, very uncomfortable, then you can find a place where you're not forced to do this. Simple as that. Because if you do not love your knees and elbows, I do. So I'd rather have people working for me who also care about their knees and elbows the way I care about your knees and elbows. End of the game. I didn't come out frustrated, I'm not upset, I'm happy. If I had not read this book, today I would have been very frustrated and maybe defeated. Because there's no end to certain arguments. There's another game. Nobody loves me. And now we have to have gender equality. Right? So we're talking now Abdullah and Suleman. So let's talk about Farooq and Mrs. Farooq. Farooq, are you married? No, you're not. So Mrs. Farooq. Now, suppose you did not take my advice and did not read this book, and you married a girl who has this game. Nobody loves me. So the first mistake that Farooq will make is on the first day he will say, I love you. Whereas you should actually wait for at least 6 months before you say that. It's not Farooq being, very naive, innocent, I love you. You know what she will say? Really? Because her internal position is, I'm not worthy of love. Now suddenly this guy is loving her. She'll say, okay. Now what is going to happen is, Farooq will say, the next day again, I love you. Another mistake. Now, Farooq goes to work, comes back from work, goes to work, comes back from work. Suppose Farooq is working for Unilever. Selling soap or detergent, whatever. Now what happens is, he comes home one day, he's late, and he forgets to call his wife and tell her that you're running late. So what is she going to say? Why are you late? And he'll say, I'm sorry, honey, I got caught up at work and stuff. And she'll say, but didn't you say that you loved me? He'll say, yeah. Then how can you be late? And he'll say, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I love you, I won't be late again. And then again something will happen. And she'll, didn't you say you love me? And I say, yeah. But then why do you do this? And every day before he goes to work, he gives her, his wife, a hand, a wave, the card. And one day your boss calls, may God forbid, a boss like me, come over here, show up. And you're so caught up and you forgot that wave. Then she'll call him and she'll say, Farooq, Assalamu alaikum. Farooq say, Walaikum Assalam. Today, did you forget something, Farooq? He'll say, no. And she'll say, really? And he says, okay, tell me what is it. I won't tell you. Think of it. Farooq is under torture. By the time he comes home, she's very upset. And she'll say, Farooq, but you said that you loved me, right? Yeah. But today, you forgot to wave to me. That's how important your boss is. A little pressure from your boss, and your love from you goes away. But this is going to happen so many times. The one fine day, Farooq will make another big mistake and he'll say, yes. I don't love you. And she'll say, see, I knew that. What has she done? She's played a game subconsciously, pulled poor guy Farooq into the game, and now it's a mess. She is validated her internal position. It's a game. So in this course we are going to actually discuss certain games that stand between us and having a powerful vision, certain games that stand between us and being proactive, certain games that stand between us and having and being empowered instead of being disempowered. So we're going to talk about certain games. That's why this book is very critical. And I think we should make it a part of the curriculum. You will hate me, but one fine day, after a few years, you will love me. So I rather accept being hated at this time than hated later on, yeah. So it's part of the curriculum, guys. And it's available. This book is available in Pakistan, yeah? Okay. So is that clear? So, games people play might be a part of your quiz or something. Maybe, I don't know. Let's see. Okay. So let's move on now. Framework. Have you heard that word before?
Yes.
Framework? Okay. So what does that word mean? So let's see. Mr. Surul, what does the word framework mean?
Framework reflects the way through which the idea can be produced. For instance,
What can be produced?
the ideas
Ideas can be produced.
Yes.
Okay, good. Priya, framework.
So framework is like kind of a model that you can follow to either to generate ideas or to make some decisions.
Yeah, that's very close. So let's look at the word framework. You have that cartoon. Okay, sure. A set of beliefs, ideas, and rules that is used as the basis for making judgments, decisions, etc. Okay? So this is Oxford Advanced Learner's Dictionary. To explain to you this word, let me share with you a story. so when I was doing the relief work, my job was basically twofold. So some of the time I was required to go, and we would go into war areas and set up projects. Once we will set up projects, then we will have team B which will be brought in and they will manage those projects. So suppose if we set up a hospital, then we'll bring in a team and these people will continue to run the hospital. Then we will actually go back to the US and Canada, and then we will raise funds. Now the issue in the US is, and in Canada, that the wealthy Muslims in the US and Canada are basically the Muslim physicians from Pakistan, from India, from Syria. Yeah? And these physicians actually are scattered around the US. Now how is that? When you go for your residency program in the US, and when you complete your residency program, the law is that you have to return back to your country immediately. You're not allowed to stay in the US. But there is a caveat, there is an exception. The exception is that if you volunteer to serve in an underserved area in the United States, they will give you a citizenship. Just like in Pakistan, doctors do not want to work in the rural areas. In the US, American physicians do not want to work in the rural areas. So Pakistani physicians will actually go to these very remote places. They'll work there for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever. In that period of time, they'll build a house, they'll get settled in that area. So you'll find Pakistani physicians and Syrian physicians scattered across the US in very small towns. You know, Princeton, West Virginia, population maybe 25,000. You'll have like 20 physicians there. Yeah? Roanoke, places like South Dakota, Fargo, North Dakota. I mean, these are crazy places where you'll have Muslim physicians there. So I used to travel across this place, meeting these people and raising funds, right? So the issue in the US is that they don't have a very good bus transportation system like Pakistan does. We are much ahead of Americans in that. The railroad is a mess, so that we are much ahead. So the only way to travel is through renting vehicles, right? So now, when you rent a vehicle and move around, now you get stuck because, you know, time for food will come and stuff. So now we can't eat every type of food. So I realized that the best food that I can have is Pizza Hut. Why? Number one, Pizza Hut is everywhere. And they're, you know, veggie lover, whatever, veggie pizza is very good, it doesn't have meat and stuff. So I started eating at Pizza Hut. Now, I started liking Pizza Hut. I still like it. So the good thing about Pizza Hut is it's everywhere. You can eat it and it's very economical food from the US standard, right? So, Pizza Hut everywhere, right? Then what happened is, in 2001, I moved to Pakistan. And around about that time, the first Pizza Hut outlet opened in Clifton. You know? This is Boat Basin. Do you guys remember this first outlet? Yes. I said, wow, Pizza Hut is here. So I went to eat with my family, and subhanAllah, I was shocked. I was literally shocked. It was the same ambiance, you know. I felt I'm in the US. And then we sat, and in 18 minutes the pizza came, and I'm watching. And being a student of psychology, I'm watching these staff people, and I felt that they're actually behaving the way that Americans in Pizza Hut outlets in America behave. Yeah? So one table was not clean, and this guy came, and he's the manager, right? And looked around, so the people were very busy, you know, the attendants. So he took a towel out of his pocket, cleaned the table, picked up the dishes and went. I said, wow, Pakistan, the manager is cleaning. My God, these guys have really worked on these people, right? So that's Pizza Hut, right? Now what happened is, very soon other people started coming over, right? McDonald's arrived, still here, Burger King is here, Hardee's is here, Dunkin' Donuts, my God, is here, Domino's Pizza is here, they're all here, right? And since we are consultants, one of these chains is my client, and you'll be amazed at the amount of money they make. You're talking about billions of rupees being made in profits, and they're all going out of the country. So these franchises put a big dent in our local food industry. So people said, well, that's not a big deal. That's not a big deal. So what we'll do, we'll also actually make nice hotels. We will restaurants, and we will get the machines. We'll hire the people, and we'll do it. So boom, Pakistani chains started to come about, right? So against KFC came MFC, Muslim Fried Chicken. And what was that? Coffee. What is it, coffee? Starbucks. Against Starbucks came Starbucks. Yeah? And they started to spring out, Good. So one day, many years ago, I had a guest, so I said, well, let's go for lunch. So we started to go off, and I said to myself, why should I give my business to these foreign chains? I'll give my business to a Pakistani chain. So I went to one of these chains in fact. So when I sat down, I felt as if the table has been cleaned with a dirty wet cloth, because there's a little smell coming. And being naive like Suleman, like Farouk, I continued to stay. Food came, nice food. Then the official drink of Timelenders is lassi, yogurt milk. So I ordered lassi. So as I drink lassi, I again felt a little bit of smell as if the glass is not that clean. No problem. And subhanAllah, after I think 2 hours, oh my goodness, the vomiting that I had, and how my stomach was churning. I literally had tears in my eyes. And I made an intention that day that that's it. Let's end to the Pakistani chains. Now may Allah, protect me from the evil eye. Say mashallah. I must have eaten, I don't know how many times at these Pizza Hut outlets across the world. Kuwait and Abu Dhabi and Dubai and the US and Canada. Not a single time I've had this mistake, this problem. So what have these people missed? So what happened? Starbucks closed down. You know this? Big issue, big problem came. Because they were actually making their money off shisha. And when the local government came against shisha, it was all over. That's how they were making their money. That's what I've been told. And many of these local chains are in trouble. One of my friends took the franchise of MFC, put in a lot of money, and he's broke now. The poor guy. He's completely broke. So the point is, what did they miss? What they missed was the fact that the real product of Pizza Hut is actually not pizza. It is the framework that they have developed over many years. That is their real forte. And that framework basically does not only talk about how to produce a pizza, it talks about how to present the pizza, how to serve it, what sort of a belief and attitude you need to have for the customers, what sort of hygiene you have to follow, what sort of sourcing you have to do. All of that is part of their framework. So they were able to pick up those people and those machines and they were able to build those restaurants, but they failed to actually develop the framework. There's a difference between having a powerful framework versus having a no framework or poor framework. Is the point clear? Let me give you another example to illustrate the framework concept. Now, I've discussed this with Park Suzuki is our client, and also Ellis Motors is my client, right? So this is all also being recorded. So I've discussed with these people also. Now, Suzuki is a Japanese company, right? And Toyota is a Japanese company. Do you think Suzuki is a small company? No. It's a giant, it's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. So is Toyota. Now, both of these companies are huge, right? And this is Toyota. With their whole manufacturing and stuff like that. Can we close these lights, please? Would I have a problem with that recording?
Yeah, we will have.
It will, okay, put them. You're rather seeing me than this, okay. That's Toyota, mashallah. How's that? Lexus is a Toyota company, product, right? Look at Suzuki. Wow. Mashallah. Meow. Look at that. Ah. How's that? How's that? Now, both of these companies have access to the Japanese culture of excellence, where Japanese kids are taught from the very beginning about excellence. So I have some of my students who actually graduated from LUMS and went to Japan, and they come back and tell me a lot of things about Japan. And one of them actually was working with me for a year. So this guy Kashif stayed in Japan for a year and told me that in Japan, you don't take shoes inside the house, right? So you have to keep the shoes outside. So if you keep the shoes outside, and if the shoe is like this, it's a big issue. It's a big issue. If the shoe is like that, it's an issue. It's a problem. It's a devastation, right? The shoes have to be like this, like that. From the beginning, they taught this. So Kashyap actually, since he had taken our course and had a vision, instead of wasting his time, he started doing research on the Japanese education system. He would go to schools, visit those schools, ask about what's going on. Every school has a policy that once or twice a month, from the principal to the youngest child, one day will do only one thing: clean and wash the whole school. From the bathroom to everything. So that day, the principal and the kids are going to wash that whole place. So a child who is going to wash that bathroom is not going to dirty it ever. We understand what it means. How many of us are trained to wash bathrooms? Very few of us. I know some of you do, but few. How many of us wash bathrooms? How many of us have washed the bathrooms of our own schools? None of us. But they do. So that's how they teach their kids excellence. So both Toyota and he told me there's only one place in Japan where you find shoes like this. Yes, where?
Masjid.
You're so intelligent, you know. In the masjids. Masajid in Japan. What a shame, yeah? So we need to work on ourselves. So one of my vision in Pakistan is, inshallah, once I'll have a little bit more money, I have this plan, to make the bathrooms of our masajid as good as the 5-star hotel bathrooms. Instead of putting money into those marble and that big, long Minara, it's useless. Make the bathrooms clean. And the good news is, have you recently traveled from Lahore to Islamabad lately? From Lahore to Islamabad on the motorway, they have built these bathrooms which are cleaner than, Sheraton and Marriott bathrooms. So Pakistani motorists today have access to bathrooms which are cleaner than the bathrooms available to the Americans in the United States on the motorways. They call them interstates. So at least alhamdulillah we have surpassed them. Yeah. So they have access to Japanese culture of excellence, they have access to Japanese technology, Japanese universities, both of these companies have, right? But why is it that anytime you give Toyota and Suzuki a task to build a similar car, Toyota will always build a better car? Do you agree with that? What do you think, Zishan?
Yes.
Or do you disagree?
No, I agree that Toyota will build a better car.
Toyota builds a better car, right?
Yes.
So what's the difference? In one word. The framework. Toyota has managed to develop a refined framework. Now, I was told by the Suzuki people that we do reverse engineering of Toyota vehicles. We take Toyota vehicles, strip them apart, and do reverse engineering and try to improve. But the issue is, they improve, but Toyota actually keeps one step ahead. Toyota has a very top secret facility in Japan where even average Toyota employees are not allowed to come. Where they do futuristic research and developments and all of that. So it's a whole concept of a framework. Toyota has a much powerful framework. Now if you look at the definition of framework, it's a set of beliefs, ideas and thoughts, SOPs. It all starts with belief. That makes a difference. If somebody has a more powerful belief, that person has more chances of developing a more powerful framework. So in the late 80s, early 90s, the automotive industry in the US was in trouble. Why? Because they have a union in the US called UAW, Union of Auto Workers. Now, UAW is a very powerful union, and what they started doing is they started shutting down these plants, and they had this agitation going on and strikes and stuff. And in the early 90s, they actually raised the minimum wage in the automotive industry to $36 per hour. And that was a time when we were working and we would get maybe $5.50 per hour, and they were getting $36 per hour. So the American cars just could not compete with foreign vehicles. So what happened is that at that time they signed an agreement called the NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, in which the signatories were Canada, US and Mexico. So after that agreement, what happened is American auto manufacturers started putting their plants into Mexico. Makes sense, right? And there was an article that came in I think Newsweek, yeah, first in, first out, which basically said that Volkswagen was the first foreign manufacturer that came into the US in the 60s, and it decided to leave the US. So the first foreign auto manufacturer to leave the US was Volkswagen also. So the American companies are moving to Mexico, China, even Canada, and foreign manufacturers are moving out. At that time, there was only one car company that was moving into the US, Toyota. So they asked Toyota, they said, you guys are crazy? What happened? Why everybody's moving out, why are you moving in? And they said, hear this very clearly, we have a 30-year vision. we have a 30-year vision that in 30 years, when Americans will look at Toyota, they will look at it as an American car. Because there is a lot of nationalism in the US, right? Buy American, buy American. Like if you go to Malaysia, so they say, so I read in different places, they've written, built by the Malaysians, for the Malaysians, for the Malaysians, by the Malaysians, Proton, there is a local vehicle. So a lot of Malaysians will buy that vehicle out of nationalism, right? So what they did is, now if you want to set up an auto manufacturing plant in the US, where would you go? Which town? Come on guys. Detroit, right? Why? Because Detroit is the hub for auto manufacturing. Just like if you want to put a textile unit, you're going to put it in Karachi or Faisalabad. One of these places, Karachi or Faisalabad. You're not going to put it in Peshawar, Swat, Murray. You'll be crazy. Or Dadu. We're going to put a textile plant in Dadu, for God's sake. But Toyota did not put its plants in Detroit. You know what they selected? They selected, this is Detroit, right? These states. These are the poor states of the US, which you do not see in Hollywood movies, guys. So if you were to drive around some of the towns here in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, you'll say, oh, is this Larry? What is this? I saw this on the television one day. I saw Leari King Live. There's a program going on. Leari King.
It's been up of the Leari King Live show.
So they put the plants here. And before they put their plants, Toyota Foundation came in to these places and they started investing money into the educational system, into the hospitals. Toyota Foundation started putting money into the hospitals and schools and stuff like that. Then they set up the plants here. And a few months after setting up all these plants, the American workers of these plants, whites and blacks, got together and passed a resolution saying that we will not allow UAW to come here. We will not allow these plants to have UAW. We will not have that union come here. And they negotiated with the Japanese and mutually decided that our minimum wage will be $24, whereas the American car manufacturers' minimum wage was $36. So the first vehicle they produced was economically much feasible than American vehicle of that size. So the first car that produced was Camry. And it was a phenomenal car. Even I used to think that, American vehicles are more comfortable and this and that, and I would not rent Japanese vehicles when I used to rent vehicles. And one day, I went in and there was no other vehicle and they gave me this Camry and I was so upset. The Camry, my God. I'd rather have a Ford. But once I drove it for like a week's time and then I said, oh my goodness, that's the car I want. So Toyota actually captured the American market. Now if you want to become the largest auto manufacturer in the world, the first market that you have to capture is which?
China.
No, American market.
Yes.
America is the largest automotive market in the world, right? And today what happened? Toyota has become the number one auto manufacturer of the world. Because of what? A framework and a long-term vision. The Suzuki didn't have it, Ford didn't have it, Nissan did not have it. Toyota had a long-term vision. So that's where a vision can make a difference. A very powerful framework and a powerful vision. Is that point clear? Okay. Now, what I'm going to say right now is very critical. So I would like you to really pay attention. Because some of the things I'm going to say, some of them are well documented and researched and whatever. Some of them are my notions. So you have to be very careful as to what I'm saying, right? Now look at me. So if I'm going to be honest, I'm an average person. I don't even have a PhD. Remember? I studied more out of, the fact that I had to study. Right? I'm not even a full-time professor. I spent most of my early youth in war areas. So what do you think? Right? So an average person like me, after a few years running around, that I've concluded that it is the framework that really matters. A framework can make a big difference, right? Now there's a small exercise that I usually do in my workshop, which I'm not going to do now just to save time. But let me run you through that exercise. I will ask people, I'll put people into groups, and I'll ask them to tell me what is the benefit of having a framework or non-framework. What are the benefits? List them down. So people brainstorm and they list them down, then we tabulate all of those things. So what do you think people would say? What do you think are the benefits of having framework or not having a framework, or having powerful framework versus a poor framework? So what do you think people would say? They'll say consistent quality. So if you have a powerful framework, you can have consistent quality. So I'm working with a client. I have a client nowadays. I will not name them. It's not right. The problem with them is that they do not have consistent quality. Because the framework is poor, so they'll make good quality product and then the quality will fluctuate. But a framework will give you consistent quality. A framework will give you more predictiveness. A framework is going to give you SOPs, which will make it easy for you to scale the whole project. Yeah? A framework will help you save costs. Right? A framework will help you improvise. So people say these things. Right? So out of this exercise, then I pick up 2 key points and then emphasize on them. There are 2 critical things that a framework will give you, a good framework. So, 2 attributes of a powerful framework. 1. The first is called progressive elaboration. What is progressive elaboration? What is progressive elaboration is that suppose I'm working for Pizza Hut. So I'm, the chef or the cook there. Yeah? So I notice that if I put the pan 3 degrees on counterclockwise, it shaves off 2 minutes in the cooking time. Suppose I notice that. Now, if I'm working for a joint where there is no framework, I'll go to my boss, say Hassan, Saab, this is happening. What will Hassan say? Oh, that's good. So whenever I need somebody who's in a rush, I'll ask you to make the pizza. Okay? Go. But if I'm working for Pizza Hut and if I go to my boss and say, this is happening, he says, no, you can't do it. That's not the SOP. Here's a form, write it down, and I'll forward it to the R&D. There, the form goes to the R&D. So the R&D, the head of R&D is Priya. So Priya sits there, and with her is Hamza and SM Hamza, and she says, oh, you guys, test it. And they keep testing it under certain conditions. They say, oh, they replicate it. Wow, it does make sense. So I get a $5,000 cash award, and now that becomes a part of the SOP, and it's sent to all 6,000 outlets across the world. That's called progressive elaboration. The framework has elaborated itself. It has improved. It has captured a brilliance of somebody and made it part of the framework. Is the point clear? Yeah? So when you look at the framework of Toyota or Pizza Hut, you're talking about a framework that has the input of hundreds and thousands of people, and their brilliances have been captured into that framework. Get progressively elaborated over many years. Is the point clear? And Toyota is very, very hot on individual, recommendations and advices and ideas. So any flow worker can actually give an idea, and that idea is going to be reflected upon and looked upon, right? Number two, that when you have a very powerful framework, so the framework is powerful, average people will give phenomenal results. Why? Because those average people have access to that framework that has this phenomenal brilliance built into it. And if the framework is poor, then phenomenal people will give average results. Because they will have to, because they do not have access to a framework. So Newton said that I can look farther by standing on the shoulder of the giants. Is that point clear? Does it make sense? So that is why a child who has just done his 8th grade, so you can still see me? Is it okay? It's working. No, it's working? Pretty stationary recording going on, mashallah. So, a child which is in, say, 8th grade will go into a Pizza Hut and produce phenomenal pizzas. And me, with say an electrical engineering degree, might not be able to produce such a good pizza. Why? He has access to a framework and I don't. So, people will tell you that if you look at the average American and you look at an average Pakistani, so Pakistanis are much sharper and street smart than an average American. That's a fact. There's somebody here who was studying in the US, right? Or Canada, who is there?
Canada.
You agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody agrees, even Americans agree. But then what happens is, Americans produce much better results as a nation because they have access to phenomenal frameworks, whereas we are in trouble. Again, if you look in Pakistan, we have certain institutions which have very powerful frameworks. For example, the Pakistan Army. They happen to be our client also. So we did a training in the GHQ and I had like 4 or 5 generals there. So one of them came, actually 2 of them came 3 of them came to me for like some advice and counseling. And I asked them, sir, tell me, they're journals, right? That tell me, sir, background, and amazing. They are from actually very humble background. They're from villages, did their metric and FSC, went into the PMA, got selected. And now after like 35 years, oh my goodness, yeah, this guy is phenomenal. Because there's such a powerful framework that is transforming these people that when you become a general, you've gone through the whole process and you are as good as a general, or maybe better general than many generals in the world. So, General Yusuf Khan is a good friend and he came to a workshop also. He was the vice chief of the army staff during Musharraf's time. So Musharraf was very busy in the political stuff, so he was taking care of the whole army stuff. So if you were to meet with him, you cannot be not impressed. Phenomenal personality. And if you really request me hard, I can actually request him to come over maybe as a guest speaker and talk to you.
Of course.
But of course you have to, formally request me and stuff, and I'll talk to him. So he knows a lot of information, and he has a lot of oversight and stuff. But if you look at his background, he's a very simple guy. There's a community called Crime Khanis in Sindh. So he's from that community. Simple person, simple background, but subhanAllah, phenomenal, development, yeah. So is that point clear? Okay. Now coming to the point that I really wanted to make, where I wanted your complete attention. So now look at an average person like me, who has gone around a little bit, and I've realized the importance of a powerful framework, right? I've realized that. So it's a powerful framework that really matters. Now, my notion is, what happened in the history is, okay, before I go to the history, there's another thing I want to mention. So I went to Bosnia. I realized that we do not have a long-term vision in that country. So I was hit by the absence of visions that triggered my interest into visions. So when I went back to the US, I started doing research. Now the beauty of research is that if you are a scientist like I am, the fundamentals of research are the same. So whether you are doing research in electrical engineering or history or psychology or sociology, the fundamentals are the same. Just like the fundamentals of business are the same. So if you learn those fundamentals, you can learn any business. So people ask me, how is it that you're chairman of a dental company, and you're a chairman of a trading company, and you're a chairman of a construction company? So if you're good friends with me, don't worry, you won't have a problem with getting a job. So I tell them, because the fundamentals of running a business are the same. So if you know those fundamentals, you can run basically any business. The fundamentals are the same. So I had this pony. Pony means in our language a misconception. I had a pony in my mind that the West is ahead of us in all fields of knowledge. Now how did this develop? Because I am a person of technology, right? So they are really ahead of us in technology and pure sciences and material sciences and all of that, right? Cutting edge. I had this wrong notion that they're ahead of us in everything. So the first thing I did is I went after these Western books, got them, started reading them and trying to understand about visions. Then what happened? I had to travel a lot to these war areas. Now if you go to a war area, a country that you have never heard the name of before, there's a war going on and you have to go in to do something. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to understand what's happening. So when I went to Tajikistan, I'd never heard of the word Tajikistan in my life. I only heard about it when the war started and I was told to go. So like I told you, there was this TB sanatorium in which we had children, and it came on the front line, and doctors could not come, medicine could not come, and kids were dying. So the project was to take this sanatorium out of that place, the place was called Kofar Neon, and to move it to the capital, Dushanbe. Now that's the project. Now I am supposed to go and do this project, right? So the first thing you will do, if you want to go to a place like this, is to look at the geography and the history. If you do not read about the history of that area, there's no way you can make a sense of what's going on. So I was forced to read history. When I started reading history, I realized it's amazing. History is amazing. And I started feeling, I've wasted a lot of my time in things like thermodynamics, which I'm not going to use. I rather would have read history. So as I started reading history, and the history of Islamic lands, because I'm going to these Muslim areas, and I started realizing, oh my God, historically we had access to phenomenal frameworks for visions. So when I started comparing the frameworks that I was finding in the history books against the frameworks that I was finding in the West, I realized that there's a huge disparity. And that was the time I made the intention that a day will come that I'll take these frameworks out of history and try to teach them to the world. Because a lot of wealth is being wasted. You understand what I'm saying? Now, how did these frameworks come about? Now comes my notion. Now, this is a fact. So, if you look at the frameworks that Muslims have to offer, are much superior than the frameworks that the West has at this time. That's a fact. So, there's no notion. How did these frameworks come about? My notion is what my notion is, how these frameworks came about, will be shared with you in the next class. Stay tuned. So, okay, guys, listen. Homework, yeah. So, till this point, I hope everything's clear.
Yes.
Now, if you have questions, you can always ask them in the next class, right? I don't want to overrun the time. Okay, there is a video on what? Daily motion? Oni video. So there's a video on daily motion that you have to watch. So our next class is when our next class is? Friday, 3 o'clock, right?
9 in the morning.
Okay, why don't you double check and let me know? I think they're trying to make it at 3. I don't know. So why don't you just double check, comes up, and then let me know, yeah? Whatever time it is on Friday, yeah? Okay. So homework number 1 is sharing. So whatever I've shared with you today, go and share it with others. Now this is a very critical homework. Now don't go to your driver, guys, please. Umar, yaar, give me a break, yaar. Go to somebody intellectual, share so there's some learning happening, because they're going to share this, there's going to be a counter question, there's going to be a very, constructive interaction, right? The second is Pony. The story on Pony is on what? Daily Motion?
Yes.
Okay, Faisal, can you open it for us? Faisal bhai? So, Daily Motion. So, if you go to Daily Motion and put what Pony, it's going to come? The story of Pony by Suleman. There you go. Okay. So, you have, how many minutes is this? 24 minutes. Okay, there you go. 25 minutes. Yes. The third homework is that there is a chapter that you have to read before you come. Do you know that on Friday we may have a joint class? Do you know that?
No.
Okay, you guys are really very naive. They're thinking of putting a joint class on Friday. So if you can open page number 44, page 44. This is chapter number 9, module number 9, right? Or module. I'm not confuse you. It's module 9. Okay, guys and girls, module 9. You have to read this chapter, and not only that,
I didn't get this.
you don't have the manual? Tell Faisal, come on, yeah. Faisal, quickly, yeah. Who else doesn't have the manual?
I think it's only me.
Everybody has the manual? Okay. So, not only do you have to read this, but you have to do the following. On page 48, there is an exercise that you have to complete. Okay? On page 49, there is an exercise that you have to do. And it's an open book, open notes, open neighbor exercises. So take help from each other, I have no issue. Take help from father, your mother, your driver, your neighbor, no issue. Yeah? And if you have nobody helping you, give me a call, okay? I'll find someone for you. And page number 56, there's a worksheet. You have to complete that worksheet. And there is a take-home quiz. Is it? You don't have the quiz? Why? You don't know? Okay. So you have to bring all the stuff that you bring in the workshop. Okay. So what you're going to do is, Faisal, he's going to give you his email address. You will send him an email and he will email the quiz to you. So anybody who wants the quiz has to send an email to Mr. Faisal. Okay, Faisal? Okay? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Faisal's email is Faisal.Siddiqui at what? Timelenders.com. Is that clear? Can you focus on this?
Sure.
You're focusing, right? Faisal.Siddiqui at Timelenders.com. So that's your take-home quiz. Yeah. You don't have any teaching assistants here? Is there any teaching assistant in this class? No.
So we have class representative.
Who is the CR?
So he is.
Oh, Hamza. Okay. So we'll grade that quiz. That quiz is going to be graded for your kind of information. It will be a part of your score. Yeah. So this is going to be a graded quiz, which Faisal Siddiqui will email to you. So now today is what, Tuesday, right? So you have Wednesday, Thursday, ample time. For this homework is ample time. So sharing, very critical. Yeah. Pony, you will watch. Page 44, module 9, you read all of that carefully. Do all of these exercises. Do the take-home quiz. Yeah. And then you show up. Okay? Now, if there is an issue that you get stuck, you don't know what to do, send me an SMS. You have my mobile number, you have my email address. Send me an SMS, Facebook, whatever. So I can assign somebody to you. Yeah. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. It's 4:30. So it was a pleasure having you. Inshallah, we'll see you inshallah on Friday, whatever time, Hamza, you confirm. And you're more than welcome. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you all here.
Thank you.